Hello folks, Rick here for this Facebook Live. All right, today's gonna be a relatively quick one. It's just me and you today. All right, in my office, talking about the new real estate industry. Okay, so I say that half jokingly because the real estate industry hasn't really changed. It's just been redefined a little bit, I would say. First off, I think if you're somebody who, all right, let's go back to the beginning. Before there was buyer agency, there was sub-agency. Now think about that. That means, you know, like when you take your test and you hear the words caveat emptor, buyer beware. All right, that's how real estate was my first 10, 12 years in the business. All right, so, which really made no sense. It's like getting a divorce and the wife has 2 attorneys and the man has none. And the women go, that's the perfect ratio. Not really. All right, so then buyer agency came along. Like in the mid-90s. I remember when it came along. People were freaking out then. By the way, there's always something to freak out about. I remember when people freaked out about the internet coming into real estate. When I started in the real estate business, we had books. We didn't even have lock boxes. You had to drive to an office to get a key. On horseback. No, I'm not that old. You know, so these are all just changes. Now, the fact that we have been able to, I mean, you can't take a listing in MLS without a signed contract. The fact that you've been able to work with a buyer without a signed contract is kind of amazing since it's been around for 30 years. So think about that, almost 30 years. So now they're separating the 2 transactions and people are going, I've heard this from agents like in our own offices. I hope you're not listening. It wasn't just one of you, it was a couple of you. I have a problem asking people for money. You're a business, right? I love what JC says. I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man. All right, because you are a walking, talking solo entrepreneur. You're a business. You're a business for yourself, but not by yourself with us, of course. We have all the tools and the brand and everything to help you. But so now, and I asked her this question. I said, so what her comment really was, because that means people are going to be offering, or her comment was everybody is going to be offering 0 cooperating fee. I said, okay, you're a listing agent. You go in to take a listing. Are you going to recommend to the seller that they pay no sub-agent? Well, of course not. Well, all the great agents aren't going to do that either. All right. I remember when this first came out. Let me tell you what I used to do. All right. And let's say I have a buyer broker agreement at 3%, and you have a sub-agency fee of 2.5, whatever. I'm going to call you and say, hey, Sally, Rick Berube here, Berkshire Hathaway. Hey, I noticed that you have a sub-agency fee of, you know, or a cooperating fee, whatever we're going to call it, of 2. I have a buyer broker of 3. Could you do me a favor and just talk to your seller and see for my contract when we're negotiating it, if you could just factor in 3, that would be great. Yes, that's fine. Okay, great. Send it to me an email stating that. Now I know I submit mine. I've got it at 3%. All right, so it's really not that complicated. Then you can have a buyer broker agreement. Like even in California, there's already a part in the purchase and sale for that. So the forms are going to change just the way it's described. You have a closing. All right, you have, you know, $1 million. X amount goes to the seller, X amount goes to the buyer, X amount goes to the listing agent, X amount goes to it's still coming out of the proceeds. Well, it used to be on the seller side. Well, that has always been argued. Without a buyer, there is no closing. All right, so you really have to decide. Okay, so am I worth it? Do I take value to the equation? All right, and someone actually, a good agent said to me a couple weeks ago, well, I'm not sure I do. I said, okay, take the last buyer deal you closed, write down every step you did to help that buyer, including the negotiating and so forth. And if you go through the process, we do a lot. If you're a buyer agent, you're going to do a lot. If you're a listing agent, you're going to do a lot. So now it's just going to be separated. You're going to have your buyer broker agreement, which you should have been using all along. A lot of the newer agents I coach, they've asked me, so what's this change for me? Right now, nothing. You're already using a buyer broker agreement. You're already comfortable with it. So right now, stage 1 is use a buyer broker agreement. And you're going to have an amount on there. But if you want to accept what they're offering in MLS until July, and people go, July, I doubt it's going to be July. All right, August, maybe September, maybe next year. But let's say it is July. So until then, get comfortable using the buyer broker agreement. And if you want to accept what's in I would recommend that you call the agent and do what I did. Hey, you have 2.5 in there. I have 1 at 3. Do you mind for this one? If your seller, you factor in 3, send me an email stating that. Boom, now you show the property. So you could do that, or you could just accept what it is, or you can get it from the buyer. Or, right now what people are doing is they're just accepting whatever it is. So that hasn't changed. This is an opportunity for you to, I think, be more professional, explain what agency means, maybe even get a pay raise for some of you if you know what you're doing, you know what your value is. 1%, 2%, 3% can be lost or gained very quickly with a highly trained, experienced agent. And I know that most buyers and sellers understand that. They think all sellers are now going to be trained. They're going to have seller training school and they're going to have all this. They're not. Okay. Matter of fact, the shine of the news has already started to wear off. How many times have you called the seller and they go, oh, great, now I don't have to pay, you X%. It hasn't happened. I remember doing a Q&A a couple weeks ago with one of our offices, and I was saying to them, they were giving me objections, and I said, well, have you heard this one yet? Well, no. Well, we manufacture most of the resistance that we have in our own brains, but you're going to get some, so be prepared. I'm going to do training on it. I'm sure you can talk to your managers as well. The buyer-broker agreement is not a form designed by Satan himself. It actually is a very valuable form that establishes agency between you and the buyer, which look, here's the problem. The problem isn't the form. The problem is what was happening with people who aren't using the form. People were getting sued. Well, who was your agent? Well, it was Sally. Did you have a buyer-broker agreement with Sally? Well, no. Well, then she wasn't your agent. I thought she was. That to me is misleading as heck. You're working with a buyer. You have nothing in writing, but they think you work for them. That's what they think, guys. Now you're going to explain what that actually means. All right. And I think that's more valuable for the consumers. It's more valuable for you, the agent. It tells everybody what's happening. So look at the opportunity in this. The opportunity in this is to become more professional, is to actually have a valuable value proposition presentation to them. You already have one for sellers. It's really the same thing for buyers, except on the buyer side. All right. And if you're with us, both of those are in the virtual agent center. I know Maria's been working hard, Maria Hull, on putting that all together. It's in there. It's, use it, practice it, become good with it. All right. And then number 1 is just don't freak out about these changes, because they're really, right now, nothing has changed. There are changes coming, but it's really just describing what we're already doing, I would say, just in more detail, and protecting yourself and the buyer. If you have any questions about it. So look you have time. Start using the buyer-broker agreement if you're not using it. I recommend that. You're going to have an amount in there. You can decide what to do if there's a shortfall, all right, based on the 2 examples I've given you. And as we move forward, more than likely, you're going to have to use it, which honestly should have probably happened a while ago. Really should have. All right. And then that way, everybody knows what's going on. There's no room for issues. You represent the buyer or the seller, and the other agent does, whoever, the buyer or the seller as well. It's spelled out. Everybody knows what's happening. Everybody knows what the compensation is. Okay. And it's not about you taking a hit. It's about you explaining and being more professional. I believe that's what it is. All right. So look, here's the other message. All right. The message that I heard years ago when this happened, the first time, which the mid-90s. All right. If you've ever decided it's time to become a listing agent, now is a good time. But I also recommend that you work with buyers, because, you just have to explain what's going on. And I think that's important. And some of you can even say, look, we have to use this. Eventually you're going to have to, so you might as well start using it now. And if any questions, feel free to give me a call. Once again, I obviously have some room in my coaching. I'm going to throw a little shameless plug in here. And don't forget, next Wednesday, 1 week from today, we have the Sunshine Kids event going, okay, at, oh my God, I can't think of the golf course. Anyway, can't think of the golf course, but anyway, it's on the brochure. Mind fade here. It's on the brochure. We hope to see you guys all there. All right, it starts at 7 a.m. and we'll have lunch. And some people are just buying the lunch and showing up for lunch. Okay, you can definitely do that. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.